Candidates Forum for District 2 City of Miami Commission race. My name is Marlene Irvin. I'm president of the Women's Club of Coconut Grove. Proud to be celebrating our 124th year this year. I would like to recognize and thank our co-sponsors for tonight's Candidates Forum who have funded everything that's gone into this. Coconut Grove Park Homeowners Association, Coconut Grove Village Council, and the Women's Club of Coconut Grove. Let's give them a round of applause. And a special shout out to Richard Martin, who gave a lot of assistance in planning the forum. Thanks, Richard. I would like to ask if you turn off your cell phones, please, so we don't have anything to disturb. The forum is being recorded and also videoed. And with no further ado, I'd like to recognize and introduce our moderator, Emmy Award winner and NBC6 News anchor, Jackie Nesrell. Big round of applause.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thanks for coming out on this rainy Tuesday evening, but this is an important seat that we're going to be debating here today, so I appreciate everyone. And I'd like to thank the Women's Club for this wonderful venue. I had never been here until a few weeks ago, and I really love it. So welcome to the Coconut Grove Candidates Forum for the District 2 Commission seat. Without further ado, let's introduce the candidates. We're going to introduce them in alphabetical order. Williams Armbruster, Javier Gonzalez, Rosa Maria Palomino, Ken Russell, Teresa Sarnow, Mike Roger Simpson, Graciela Grace Solares, that was my bad, Seth Slary, and Lori Woods. So we're going to have to do some housekeeping. We're going to have to go over the rules. First of all, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. And we picked numbers, so I guess those are the numbers that we're going to be giving the opening and closing statements. And then if the opening, the person that starts will be the last one for the closing statements. And here they are. Questions were submitted by the audience prior to the event, and they were already provided to me, so I have them. I have sole discretion of determining what question to ask which candidates. Each question will be posed to 3 candidates, and that's going to be on a rotational basis. It's going to be random, so I'm just going to ask a question of 3 candidates. The time limit will be strictly enforced for opening statements, closing statements, and responses to each question. There's a timer right there, and that will be on display. The green light when the timing begins, the yellow light when 30 seconds is remaining, and a red light when time has expired. So please adhere to that time if you can, please. I have to go back to Broward County for my shows at 11 p.m. tonight. So there are, yes, that was a plug, thank you. NBC6. We have categories. The categories are housing and development, transportation, environment and parks, municipal government, jobs and economic development. Now, some of these issues are fortes for the candidates, but I'm not going to ask a specific issue to a specific candidate. It's going to be random. So let's start with the opening statement. The first one is Ken Russell.
Good evening. Thank you, Jen. Thank you all for coming. My name is Ken Russell, and I'd be very proud to be your next city commissioner. As many of you know, I didn't intend to get into politics at all, but when my neighborhood was faced with a contaminated park, I stepped up and I did what I felt my commissioner should have done. I gathered the neighbors and we worked together for months to make sure that the cleanup was done properly. I was in City Hall a couple weeks ago and I saw the final vote of no further action on that park issue. And it should have been a good feeling, right? But a cleanup of a park is not why I'm running. It's the corruption that I saw during that park cleanup that has made me realize I have to get involved and that I have to run. In that same commission meeting, Commissioner Sarnow, he said some confusing statements about accusations he said I made incorrectly. And I just want to clarify tonight that I do have an accusation to make, and you can quote me on this one. Commissioner Sarnoff misled the public on that toxic cleanup. And then Commissioner Sarnoff lied about how it was paid for. Because we as residents have evidence that 2,500 tons of contaminated soil was removed, and the $175,000 that it cost to do it, we know did not come from any anonymous donor. So the taxpayers who ended up footing that bill would like to know, where is that money, Mr. Sarnoff? You see, if that's what they're doing on a small-scale park cleanup, what's going on with large-scale development behind doors? We know as a city of Miami we can do much, much better. And I just want everyone to really realize that a vote for another Sarnoff is just a vote for another Sarnoff. We can do better, we need to turn the page. I'm a new generation of thinking, and I'd really like to serve this city in the right way and for the right reasons. On November 3rd, please vote for Ken. Thank you.
Ken, thank you. Next up, Roland Anderson.
My name is William Zarvester. My name is William Zarvester, and 60 of the 124 years, Esther May Armbruster has been fighting for the preservation of not only the community, but the people in this community. And since she has passed away, it was left up for someone to do the job that no one will do. And that's not to be compromised. Listen to what the people are saying. Acknowledge their opinions. Acknowledge their feelings. Acknowledge what they think. But make certain that your decisions are based on a position that is based on what is true and what is necessary. I have been through a lot of battles with the city of Miami on my own, and I'm moving from this point forward. Whatever happened before me is because the voters made certain that it would happen by those that were elected to serve us. I retired from Florida Firelight to pursue a nursing career. And since I had time to attend some of the meetings, and that's when I realized that there was no one representing you and us, the invisible people. Because the only visible people are developers and lobbyists, friends and relatives. So when I'm elected, I will continue doing the work that is necessary to not only preserve the community, but the livelihood of the people in this community. And I do thank you for your listening.
Thank you, William. Next up, Rosa Maria Palomino.
Thanks for coming. My name is Rosie Palomino. I am an activist of many, many years. I have a list of civic accomplishments. I'm not going to bore you with my bio, as you have that with my 5 for Miami plan. I am running because our political system, our local government is broken. Unfortunately, we have blood money. I'm running on campaign finance reform. I want to copy-paste the existing ordinance that we have already in Miami Beach. Our water, our politics, our parks are absolutely polluted. I want to restore justice to government. I want to bring back common sense. I want Miami to have a conscience again. I want to grow our economy like world-class cities. At the end of the day, there are cities like Charleston that are much smaller than ours, and yet they are generating millions of dollars in revenues because they know how to bring in industries. I too am the president of the Miami Parks Foundation, and I am the VP of my neighborhood. I have a long list of work with foundations, and I actually have to work. I have to vote. I can't vote in my own backyard. Douglas Park has been closed for 2.5 years, and I hope the media gets this. And this is where they sent me and all of my neighbors to vote. Mind you, the last election, I fought the election department, and I won. I made the deadline by 1 hour. My neighbors were able to vote, not in August, but in November. Here we go again, Miami, voting an entire neighborhood when they know that the park is closed. City of Miami, you're on notice. And so is the elections department.
Rosie, thank you. Javier Gonzalez.
Hi, Hi, good evening. First of all, thank you for all coming out. It's always a pleasure to see a lot of familiar faces. Again, my name is Javier Gonzalez, and I'm running for City Commissioner. And a lot of you know me as a local kid. I grew up here, lived here since 1965, and grew up in North Road and came over and lived now currently in South Road. I'm the former chair of your village council. I still am part of the village council. And through that time, one of our goals was to outreach, to start to communicate with the public, and to embrace a lot of information or other folks that could help us, county, state. And what we try to do is reach out to these folks and bring them in. And I think the whole platform is communication. You wouldn't have 9 candidates running if we didn't have a trust factor with our current system. I want to communicate. I want to be able to be there for you. I want to be able to be that source where you come and say, how do we need these? We need to solve these kind of things. And that's really what I want to offer you as a candidate. On a personal note, I've been married 31 years. I'm a local real estate agent. I've been in business for over 35 years. I've been in retail, I've been in manufacturing, and now I'm in real estate. There is nobody out there that can BS me. I've been doing it on the ground for 35 years. Your developers can come to me and tell me all sorts of things. Your manufacturers can tell me all sorts of things. A lot of people can come up and tell me things. I ain't buying. I've been doing this for a long, long time. I need your vote. I need your support. A lot of you know me. Vote for Hobb. Thanks.
Thank you. Seth Slavy.
Hi, I'm Seth Slavy. I've lived in Coconut Grove for 48 years. I've seen a lot of changes, and I've seen a lot of things happening that are good and some that are not so good. I'm concerned with some of the things that we're going to have to face in the foreseeable future, one of which is global warming causing climate change, causing rising sea level. If you went over to Miami Beach or if you were near Biscayne Bay this week, you would see the bay overflowing onto the city streets, especially on Miami Beach and on Bayshore up in the North District, north part of this district. I've been involved in the community the entire time I've been here. We started with Bikeways Now in 1971. We expanded the bikeway up on Kingdom Highway, and then we created bikeways all over the county. I've been involved with bicycles and environmental issues the whole time. We have to make Miami more accessible and more friendly toward joggers, people who walk, people who ride bicycles, and people who park cars. The City Commission, for some reason, want to make less parking spaces for high-rise buildings. You know, where are they going to go? They're going to go out onto the street. It doesn't make sense. They made parking spaces smaller to accommodate smaller cars. The cars got bigger, the parking spaces are still smaller. There are a lot of things that we have to do. That we have to change the way that campaigns are financed. I'm seeing the way developers pour in hundreds of thousands of dollars into political
Seth, I'm going to
campaigns.
interrupt you. Thank you. Next up, we have Graciela Grace Solares.
If you can hear me this way. My name is Grace Solares, and I'm sure some of you have heard of me, have seen me at City Hall. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me as a person. I'm a grandmother, I'm a mother. I came to this country in 1960. I've been living in the North Grove for 48 years. I have been the president of the Roads Association for many years, one of the co-founders of Miami Neighborhoods United, and I am the president of the Urban Environment League. Why? Because I'm constantly fighting for the protection of the quality of life of the people of Miami. I was one of the persons who actually joined the fight with respect to the Mercy Hospital, to the Marlins Stadium, to the building they wanted to build behind the actual hangars over here some years ago that Maria Fried, at the time, the president of this organization that is sponsoring this event today, called me. And I did an enormous research on that and stopped that building 20 feet from your waterfront. I also engaged in the issue of Grove Bay, that they have the Scotties being taken away. And most of the Grove voted against that issue. So I've been involved for 20 years on this issue. And why am I running? Because I am absolutely up to here, like you, that only the special interests get the benefit of the votes of the city commission. That has to stop. We have to have transparency and accessibility, and we must make you part of the decision-making process of the government, not just one person making the decisions for you, and then you're finding out months later that something was done and you never knew about it.
Grace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, Mike Roger-Simpson.
Good evening. I want to thank everybody for braving the weather tonight to come out and listen to the nine of us talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. As far as my political aspirations, up until about 18 months ago, my political aspirations were the same as most of you sitting in this room. I wanted to show up on the first Tuesday of November, pick somebody that would speak for me, and then forget about them for 4 years. I just wanted them to do the job we picked them for. The problem is, for the last 10, 15, 20 years, those people have been falling off of the ballot left and right, and it's getting to the point where you can't find anybody on the ballot that you would trust for $20, let alone the next 4 years of your life. So I decided that there was two choices. I could be one of those disenfranchised people who complain about politics on Facebook all the time but don't do anything about it, or I can try to do something about it. And that's what I'm doing. I'm stepping up to speak for the people who have a voice like me that hasn't been heard for quite some time in our city, in a larger picture in our county and our state as well. The person who sits in this chair is going to have a voice that reaches far beyond Coconut Grove, far beyond District 2. It's going to reach to Tallahassee. And you need somebody that's going to speak to the same principles that you believe in. So I'm going to encourage all of you to listen very carefully to what we say. We're going to talk a lot about money tonight, but money isn't the message. Listen to what people are talking about. Does their beliefs match with what you believe? And walk out of here with an idea of who is going to represent your ideas in that commission chamber in Tallahassee, and then share that with your friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next up, Lori Woods.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I think we've done about 8 or 9 of these. I'm actually honored to sit with the other 8 candidates here. I think what you have are an incredible group of people that are really trying to make a difference in our community. And I think that we really need to look towards positive change. We can sit and nitpick on some of the challenges and issues that we've had in the past, but really, we're in 2015. We have an opportunity to make a decision for the next 4 years of what's our landscape of our community going to be. And myself, I've only been here for 5 years. My family came out here because we really wanted to live in Miami. I've lived in other parts of the country, grew up in Colorado, lived in California, and so I've seen different ways that communities and government interact. And I think that here we have a lot of challenges, but we also have an amazing amount of vibrant individuals that really want to make a difference. And I think if there is a way that we can connect and collaborate with the talent in our community, that we can truly tackle the issues. And so I'm here before you not as the answer and the amazing, intelligent one. However, I do understand, and I know what smart people look like, and so that's why I'm here, because of all of you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Lori. Last but not least, Teresa Sarnoff.
Hi, I'm Teresa Sarnoff, and I'm proud of that. Mark has done a great job being commissioner, and we have the regatta got a park across the street that's a great example of that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of 10 girls. I come from Western New York, and I have an unusual work history in that I started in road construction, which was our family business, as a flag girl, parts runner, and then heavy equipment operator. I then was paralegal and legal administrator for over 20 years. I was hired away by Cigarette Racing Team, and there I really enjoyed my time making and manufacturing boats, the fastest boats in the world, right here in Opelika. There I managed over 100 employees and learned a lot from that experience. I have been walking door to door since January. I've gone through the district twice. I'm on my third time through. I've listened to what everybody has had to say, and they've said that we need to reduce crime, reduce traffic, reduce government waste, and protect our natural resources. We need more police officers. We need more traffic opportunities. We need to have accountability in the procurement process. And we need more park space. I am president of End Homelessness Now, that deals with homeless, and created the MAP program with the Camillus House. I also work with animal rescue organizations, and would love to be your commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to start with housing and development, and the first question I'm going to pose to Javier, because you're in real estate, and I thought it would be appropriate because the quality of housing for low and middle income households, especially young families, remains increasingly scarce, as we all know. And the majority of the new housing being built now in Coconut Grove is in the luxury and even ultra-luxury markets. What measures could you support as a commissioner that would increase the available housing stock that is affordable to all households or workers?
That question came up last night at the forum that we had in the Village West. It's a very, very difficult and complex issue, because as we start to trade mature properties, those properties start to go up in value. So a lot of the homeowners here that are what I call mature owners over 20 years tend to already own their properties at a certain rate. We're not manufacturing enough new items in that entry level $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. And it doesn't have to be single family. It can be condominium, it can be townhouses. So what we need to do is focus and try to energize our building partners to be able to do smart growth. It's a very, very delicate balance. There are opportunities. You have across from US 1, there's a lot of opportunities there. But you really need to be able to be compassionate as to how you do housing. It can't just be the wild, wild west and the free-for-all. That's what's been happening. That's what's going to continue to happen if you don't have a commissioner in there that has the stones to say, hey, not here.
Javier, thank you. Seth, I'm posing the same question to you. Would you like me to reiterate it?
Yes.
Okay. Because you're a long-term resident of the Grove, so quality housing for low and middle-income households is very scarce in the area. So what measures would you support as a commissioner that would increase the available housing stock that is affordable to all households or workers?
Part of the solution lies in zoning and planning. Several years ago, Elizabeth Taylor Zyberg, who was the dean of the University of Miami School of Architecture, had a charrette, or several charrettes, in Coconut Grove dealing with this very issue. And one of the things that she proposed was to have units with mother-in-law quarters. It used to be that they had, many years ago, they had slaves' quarters. Then it became maids' quarters. Then it became mother-in-law's quarters. And what it is, really, is just a smaller unit as part of a larger housing unit where someone could live or rent who wasn't as economically advantaged, say a school teacher or a firefighter or just a regular worker.
Seth, I'm going to have to interrupt you. I'm sorry if you guys can make the answer answers a little more succinct, because I know that you have something that you want to say and it's important, but we have a time limit. So, Teresa, I'm going to go to you because your husband has been an active part of this growth of Coconut Grove. So, would you like me to reiterate the question?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. It is a problem with all the young people that we have moving here. The industry is starting to change. We're getting tech startups. We're having, it's very youth-oriented, and they need affordable housing, something that they can have. Now, you can build mass transit development so that they also have transportation and get away from the car so we can have a live, work, play environment. But there's also inclusionary zoning that could also help out, where you have mixed income levels in your development. So those are just a few of the solutions.
I appreciate that, thank you. Williams, I'm going to pose the next question to you, because do you think that the city should require developers build housing that is affordable to all income levels?
That question goes to 2004. Some of you may remember we voted for a $2.9 billion Building Better Community Bonds, and that was for the expansion of home ownership in Miami-Dade County for low to moderate income households. At that time, it was $19,500 up to $40,000 for home ownership, providing first and second mortgages. And if you want more information on that, I'll be more than happy to fill you in after, because my time is up for now. Thank you very much.
Grace, you've also lived in the Grove for 48 years. So do you think that the city should require developers build housing that is affordable to all income levels?
Absolutely, yes. I think if the big developers want to continue here in this city making all kinds of dollars, making high rises of luxury condominiums, I think those developers should be requested, instructed, that with their luxury condominium, there must be some workforce housing actually built in the area, particularly in the West Grove, that what's happening there about the gentrification that is being caused right now is incredible. Yes, I do believe they should be asked, absolutely.
Mike, I turn it to you now, because you say you're a regular guy, you've just been in the audience listening to this debate. How would you handle that? Do you think that the city should require developers to do so?
Well, the problem isn't that the developer should be forced to do it. The city should be the one that determines how much of a particular project is being built in a given area of the city. The city should only approve so many luxury projects. They should incentivize developers to go out and build middle and lower income housing. It's the city that should drive that, because the developers are going to build what's profitable to them, and it's a different construction skill set that builds a high-rise on Bayshore than builds lower income, smaller buildings in a different part of the town. So it's the city that should drive that. We shouldn't necessarily be putting the responsibility on the developer. It's our responsibility.
Okay, Rosie, I'm going to turn to another question, because zoning in the Center Grove generally allows for 5 stories maximum and 65 units per acre, much less than on Bayshore Drive than what we're seeing right now. Do you believe that the zoning in Center Grove should provide for taller buildings and additional residential development, or do you see that as a threat to the character of the Center Grove?
I am very much a historic preservationist. I helped walk through the designation of Simpson Park, very much like this. I'm glad this is not a tennis court. That's probably what that would have been. And I'd like to say that one of the issues that we have is that we need to also support our small builders. That's why I support the parking exemptions, especially around TOD. The big developers have made it impossible to house your young urban millennials. They're affordable. And unfortunately, sometimes, you go through a neighborhood and you see some lots that they can't do anything on, but they're collecting garbage, liens, and inviting crime. And these are the lots that can be built to help. There was an incentive program that unfortunately they took advantage of. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, with the red
Yep,
lights,
that's-
I apologize. Lori, you said you want positive change. Would you change that about the Center Grove?
I think each neighborhood has their own specific flavor, their own idea of what is right for them. In certain areas, there is potential to put a larger high-rise in order to encompass workforce as well as affordable housing. It's a balance, and sometimes we have to make hard choices, and we have to look at, does it benefit, weigh out the negatives. And I think that's something that the community really needs to decide. I think we need to reach out to that individual community and see if it's something that's welcome. And if it is, I would side with the people who make choice.
Ken, how do you respond to that?
I think we have a very big district, which is odd because it's so varied community by community. And what we've got in the Grove is a very unique gem. This is my home. I moved away, but when I came back, I was going nowhere but the Grove to raise my children. And if the Grove changes, and it's not the Grove anymore, that's not what I remember, it's not where I want to live. It has a soul and a character that we don't want to lose. It's always been a fluid, changing place that's part of its bohemian nature, but right now we kind of feel it losing its soul. So it's not just about the zoning change or what we allow here and there. It's really about a guiding principle of character. And what's inappropriate in one place may be appropriate somewhere else, and you need someone who's willing to prioritize that character, someone who's from the Grove and recognizes the importance of that.
Thank you. We're going to switch now to transportation. Mike, you said you want to give a voice to the average resident here in the Grove. So some people in the Grove would like to see a reduction in non-residents commuting through the streets here as a way to preserve neighborhood character and safety, which we just mentioned. Do you approve, and how would you do it?
Absolutely. I think that's a problem district-wide and city-wide. We have people that live in Kendall that work on South Beach, and for them, Miami is just a pass-through. Every neighborhood has that problem. We definitely need to improve the flow of our traffic around the neighborhoods, especially with public transportation, so that the people that have to be in the neighborhood are the ones that have the priority on the streets. We don't want to have to deal with throughput traffic. We want larger arteries that can take people from point A to point B without having to go up Grand Avenue or up A.
Rosie, how would you do it if you would?
While other cities are using signalization, they collect live data, and they could have coordinated everything gridded with technology. It really does work. We need dedicated bus lanes. Portland, Oregon is a prime example of the nation's probably #1 transportation system where it is absolutely flawless. People are able to put their bikes on the buses. No one is late to work because everything works. Technology, unfortunately, if you look at the city website, it looks like it was built in the 1600s. And unfortunately, until technology comes in, we can't do any of these things. That's why I developed an app, My Miami. Take a look.
Lori, do you think that that should be changed, so that other residents don't have to go through the Coconut Grove streets?
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely.
I'm sidetracked by Portland, Oregon, and Rosie had a great idea. So I'm visualizing the 1600s.
To see a reduction in non-residents commuting through the streets of Coconut Grove, how would you preserve the neighborhood? How would you circumvent the people from driving through the streets?
I think what we need to look at as ways where our streets and our communities are pedestrian as well as bike friendly. I think we need to change streets from being just thoroughfares where people are racing through and then we're having to put speed bumps in order to slow traffic down. And we actually need to create an environment to where we're actually out there enjoying our community. And I think we look at things in that realm and we go back in time, kind of maybe to the 1600s, like Rosie likes. We have the ability to really live in a wonderful setting, and so that running through it in a fast car is not the reason to be there.
Williams, how would you encourage residents in district to drive less and use alternative modes of transportation?
That's a tough question, but I know that a lot of the traffic that comes through Coconut Grove comes from as far as Homestead and Florida City, because Old Cutler Road tends to, most of the time, run a lot faster than US 1. And we need to stop expanding commercial development in the residential communities. That would help as well. When you take a neighborhood community and you start putting in 3- and 4-story buildings in those residents, that's not going to help the traffic situation either. And with the zoning changes of single-family homes going from 1 home to 2 homes, that is not going to help our traffic either. There are some places we can add a 3rd lane, a left-right turn lane right down there on Bayshore Drive that would help alleviate some of the slowing of traffic for vehicles entering Bayshore Drive and exiting Bayshore Drive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Williams, thank you. Javier, how would you encourage residents in district to drive less and use other modes?
Everyone already knows my answer, flying cars. This is one of the most difficult situations that we have. We have several things that we can talk about. We can talk about the last mile. We can talk about making public transportation cool. We have Uber, we have Lyft, we have a lot of opportunities out there that we have available. We have to use every single thing. I'm a big believer in reward and punish. And one of these things is that if you make it difficult to come through the neighborhood, they're not going to come through the neighborhood. You're going to find ulterior roads. We also have to support the underline. We have to support the transit trust. There are so many things out there that as a commissioner, you have to be. You have to be global. That's a key operative word here. Be global so that we can get things done.
Grace, how would you respond to that?
In one of my websites, I should have said that what we need in Miami is connectivity, which we don't have right now. We have a Miami trolley that is extremely effective and good, but it only gets to Mercy Hospital. You leave the Coconut Grove area totally without any service. It only goes to Midtown. You leave the entire Upper East Side totally out of the services of the trolley. I think, first of all, connectivity. We need to bring more trolleys in order for the people to do it. I use it. I use it to go from where I live, which is a block from Vizcaya, to go down to Mary Brickell Village. And it's very good. I have an app right on my phone that I get. I know when it's getting here. I think we need to do that. We need to encourage Uber, Lyft, the ride-sharing projects that we have right now here in the
We're going to discuss both Uber and Lyft in just a few moments. But Seth, I'm going to turn to you because we've been reporting a lot in the news of so many different bike accidents throughout South Florida, especially in Virginia Key. So should we create a bike-friendly transportation network in Coconut Grove? And how can we make bicycling safer in Miami as a whole?
Well, as somebody who rides a bike every day, probably 20 miles a day, I'm very familiar with this problem. There has, some of the higher end cars have detection devices on the side of the car that will alert the driver if they get too close to another object, a bicycle, a car, a pedestrian, things like that. Uber is a kind of conspiracy with Google to eventually lead to driverless cars. And that's probably going to be one of the answers in the next 10 or 15 years. We have to make a separation between bikes and the cars. At present, it was 3 feet. Maybe we could do it a little more. The problem is that the roads are narrow and there's only just so much space for everybody. I think that we're going to have levitation-type vehicles, water taxis, magnetic levitation vehicles, and driverless cars.
Thank you. Teresa, bike-friendly streets.
Bike-friendly is key, especially in Coconut Grove and going out to Key Biscayne And we need to have continuous paths where it's a seamless ride, but we also need to maintain those paths, because I've heard a lot of, when I go door to door, they're telling me that the maintenance on the bike paths is not kept up, and so they have to go out into the street anyway. But we need that, and the main highway. If you take federal dollars, FDOT now has a mandate that you have to include bike lanes. So that's helpful. But we also, in something like the main highway, need to separate the bikes from the cars to protect them. And so we need to protect, we need to maintain, and we need to make a seamless ride. Thank you.
But it's going to cost a lot of money, Ken, and a lot of people like to ride through Coconut Grove because it's such a wonderful area to ride. How would you do that?
How would I fund it? With the bike lanes or?
Or what would you do to alleviate some of the problems now that are directly related to bike riders and their safety?
Sure. I think it's paramount. Cyclists are dying at way too high a rate for our community when we're trying to encourage cycling use. We're trying to encourage public transportation. We're really trying to get people out of their cars, because that's part of the biggest problem. Can you hear me all right? That's part of the biggest problem, is that too many people are married to their cars. And I bet everybody here drove their car and oh, it was raining, so you get a pass. So, I really want to make these things into a choice, not into a need. We need to want to be able to do that, and then it creates, a convenience. We have to make these things convenient. The bike lanes have to be very safe. I'm a big advocate of protected bike lanes. The little noisemakers where a car goes out of their lane, they can hear that if they're sleepy, if it's late at night or whatever. Is that my time? Thank you.
I'm going to pose this question to the audience because we still have another couple of questions on transportation. Is this something that's important for you, or do we move on? Move on? Move on. Okay. So that was Uber and Lyft was another one of our questions. We saw Mayor Jimenez, who announced that Uber and Lyft will be legal in Miami-Dade by the end of the year. So that could be a transportation. Okay, so let's talk about the environment and parks. I'm going to start with Ken because you mentioned the parks in your opening statement. So recent reports show that Miami-Dade County is among the world's most vulnerable metropolitan areas to the effects of climate change. And I talked to John Morales, our meteorologist today, and he says in terms of nuisance flooding from king tides and the assets of most of this area, we are the most vulnerable metropolitan area in the world. So if elected, what would you do to address this challenge?
Well, we don't need to look at the news. If you live on places like Bay Homes Drive...
Oh, we want them to look at the news.
Sorry.
I have the time to do it.
After you look at the news, we can look in our backyards and see the issue, especially if you live down near the water, places like Bay Homes Drive, where on a high tide, the flood drainage does not work. And that's because sea level is rising. And we have to come to terms with that. The city of Miami is the absolute last in the county to start implementing sea level rise mitigation rules. And I'm very much in favor of that. Development needs to take it into account. And the city needs to wake up and realize it's happening. I really feel like Miami is in the Stone Ages when it comes to environmental issues. And these are things that are very important to me.
Seth, I'm going to ask you, because we just saw some examples of flooding here on Bayshore, as well as Miami Beach and Fort Lauderdale and Dean Creek. So if elected, what would you do to address this challenge? And it's a big challenge for our area.
I was a structural building inspector for the city of Miami, and after Hurricane Andrew, people along Bayshore Drive, like in the Hermitage and places like that, started to rebuild their first level rooms, and they were trying to build bedrooms back in there. And I said, wait a second, you can't build bedrooms in there because if there is a high water incident, like a hurricane or just a storm surge, you're going to die in your bedroom. And so, number one, the zoning changed so that has raised them higher. Number two, you have pumps. Number three, you require the level of the ground to be higher. It just would fill with nothing else. That's a start, but there's a lot more.
Thank you for that. Rosie, you said this is a concern for you as well. What would you do if elected to address this challenge?
Well, you immediately have to find the funds immediately. You can't walk, I mean, you have to run, not walk. Everyone's investment is their home. And it has to be, unfortunately, the infrastructure here is lacking, and we're really behind the times when it comes to this. So we do have to put drainage systems that work. We need to fix the infrastructure. They have to be maintained, which so often the city is negligent in doing any of those things. And definitely, just practically, you have to find the funding, and you have to get it done, because we're really in trouble.
This is an important issue for Coconut Grove, Rosie, thank you. So I'm going to give whoever wants to answer on this question an opportunity. We're going to give you the same amount of time. But because Coconut Grove is so beautiful and it's such a natural asset to South Florida, how can we preserve the health and purity of the bay, of the ocean, and of just the environment here in Coconut Grove? So who would like to answer to that? Lori. The ones that did not have an opportunity to reply. Lori.
I think that so far what we're doing is we're looking at LEED and we're looking at going forward with construction at the silver level. We need to move 5 notches above that and look at the Living Building Challenge and the Living Community Challenge. When you look at climate change, well over 54% of that is done from environmental emissions, from automobiles, etc. The other balance, most of it is within construction. If we can look at being much greener, we can start to bring that back down, not to negate it, but we can at least move forward.
Seth, did you, let me go to Grace. Grace?
Yes, I'd like to. First of all, we have to understand that the issue of water rights level is actually, the county is in driver's seat on that. However, the city must work with the county in conjunction with the county to find actual solution to this problem. One thing that the city of Miami can do, however, ladies and gentlemen, is make a tweak on Miami 21, our zoning laws, that no building is actually built any closer than 100 feet from the waterfront, and that the public lands that are ours, that are on the waterfront, nothing is permitted to be built there, less than 100 feet from our public land.
Do you like to respond, Williams? Yes.
Yes, like I said before, I retired from Florida Power Light, so when it comes to electricity, inside and out, I can let you know what you need to do for the situation you have. But when it comes to climate change and what needs to be done to address the issue as it pertains to the neighborhood, we need to employ folks who are smarter than us, who have experience in that area, and first let us know what needs to be done before we start trying to find out where we're going to get money to give to somebody to do the job. And that's how it should be done.
Seth, you said you wanted to.
Biscayne Coalition, and we've been looking at a lot of water issues that plague Biscayne Bay. There's a tremendous amount of runoff that runs into Biscayne Bay. A lot of sewers in the city of Miami still empty into the Miami River, into the Wagner Canal. There's industrial pollution. And what had happened was years ago when they lowered the water table in the Everglades, it reduced the amount of fresh water that went into Biscayne Bay. So it changed the whole ecological environment there. Fish got killed off, things like that. I used to live on South Bay Shore Drive, and about a couple of times a month, the sewer plant on Virginia Key would just dump raw sewage because they were overloaded, they couldn't handle it. So they just dumped it. You could smell it. If you lived on Bay Shore, if you lived on Fisher Island, you could smell it. It was terrible. Biscayne Bay is still polluted. Miami River is still polluted. Wagner Canal is still one of the most polluted waterways in the country. So we've got to address this, and we've got to remediate.
Thank you, Seth. This is an important issue. Anyone else? Yes.
I think the main thing you need to know is what you can do as a commissioner. And, we, like Lori said a while ago, we've done about 9 of these things. A lot of times I hear people say things that we can't do as commissioners. We're promising stuff we can't do. So what we can do as Commissioner of District 2, the richest, most powerful district, is basically scare the hell out of everybody else. So what we need to do is make sure that that district, this district, communicates to all of the parties saying this is a concern for our community. So we have to involve federal, state, county, because county does most of the drainage, as Grace pointed out. So the first thing we need to do is, what can we do? The biggest thing we can do is make sure that everybody knows that it is a concern to our district, that the commissioner is going to stand up and again, have the voice, the power to be able to work with everybody and make sure that we are heard. Because this is an issue. It's not a right, a left.
Javier,
or a
thank
middle.
you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address it? Yes, ma'am.
Just briefly about flood mitigation and flood drainage. Main Highway was almost shut down this year for a project that I think was probably unnecessary. We're so worried about alleviating floodwaters, but we need to go through the right steps to make sure our government is not wasting money unnecessarily. In that particular case, tests weren't done on how the flooding is actually, whether the pipes are actually failing. And if you really go out there in the morning before the cars are out there, you'll see the reason is the water's not actually even getting to the drainage holes. They're being stopped by the roots of the mahoganies. This is just simple common sense things that someone on the ground should be looking at instead of just signing mega checks for big development projects that would kill the business of the Grove if they went through unnecessarily. So I just think we need to think smart about these things.
Okay. Do you want to respond to that?
I sure do.
That's going to take up your time for the next one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. With all due respect to Ken, that's kind of not true. I was really involved in that project and what was going on. If you know the whole story goes back that was a 3-year project. That project came online 3 years before we even were discussing it last month or 2 months ago, 3 months ago. What happened was one of the owners of one of the buildings complained about flooding. And that owner called it out. They had it pumped out, they had it drained. Think of your drain field and your septic tank. You can keep doing your septic tank and your drain field will be fine. But the drain field is bad, it's failed. It's going to continue to back up. So that project had to be done. I was instrumental in talking with the county to set it back and making sure that we would push it back so that we wouldn't get it during these months where a lot of our businesses were opening. That project has to happen. There's pictures, there's photos, that has to happen. So with all due respect to Ken, I appreciate your valiant efforts and your gung-ho
Javier,
about
thank you.
this is something. Thank you.
I have complaints from a low spot, and I think they could have spot fixed it rather than tear up the whole highway.
Okay, so a difference of opinion there. We're going to have to move on to municipal government.